Hey guys, welcome to another video. My name is Ian. I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. Today I am bringing you guys my April wrap up. And, oh, that was my phone, dude. Okay, so if it wasn't obvious from the intro, my tripod is still broken and my phone went flying. That's so funny. Oh man. But in this video, I am bringing you guys my April wrap up. April was such a productive reading month. I was part of the Battle of the Bands readathon. My team did not lose. I mean, we did not win. It just feels right to say we did not lose because everything was working in our favor. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But I read a lot of great books, and I'm here to talk to you guys about them. Let me know in the comments of this video if you've read any of these books or if you're interested in reading any of these books. It was like an all over the place reading month. I read 22 books, so we're not going to waste any time. We're just going to jump in, and I'm really not going to edit this video other than putting up the pictures of the books. So if this is rambly, I'm sorry. If this is all over the place, I'm sorry. It's just the only time I have to film is late lately, and the later it gets, the less filtered and the less I care. That sentence didn't really make sense. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and jump in. Lots of books. Let me know if you've read any or if you're interested in reading any. Let's start. Okay, so the first book I read is Anji Kills a King by Evan Lycum. This book comes out in like a few days as of filming this video, and I really enjoyed this book. So I think that this is a really good, really solid fantasy debut novel. We follow a character who is an unassuming protagonist in that she really shouldn't be the person who killed a king, but she is. She kind of sees an opportunity to take out somebody who is not a good person, and she jumps at it. And from there, she goes on the run. She also ends up being traced down by this bounty hunter, and things go from there in some unexpected ways. What I'll say about this book is that the pacing was really strong. It's not a particularly long novel, and I love reading fantasy books that are not like 500 pages long. Give me a really solid 300-page fantasy book and I'll be really happy, and that's what this was. Additionally, I thought I knew where the story was going as we got into it, and I learned very suddenly that I did not. Evan took some really bold moves in this book, and I really enjoyed them, and I am very excited to see what he does in the next book. So Evan, great job, my man. This book was a lot of fun. Definitely check out Anji Kills a King when it comes out in early May. I'll have a review up for it soon though, so look out for that. Next up, I read Dead Things by Stephen Blackmore. This is the first book in the Aaron Carter urban fantasy series, and I liked this book, but it definitely fell into the first book in an urban fantasy trap that a lot of books do. Even Dresden Files, like the first fantasy book, is not a big hit for me. I thought it was fun, definitely a bit predictable, and I will say this book went pretty dark and went in some directions I didn't necessarily expect at the end as far as like the characters stuff. But it definitely makes me curious for future books. I am intrigued, and I think the ending was the strongest point. The rest of the story was pretty good, pretty typical. The ending was really good. So yes, if you want an urban fantasy series that's a little bit grittier, check this one out. Next, I reread Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinneman. Of course, this was a good time. The Book of Strummer Discord, if you want to join us for a read-along of the series, you're welcome to. We're on book 2 this month. It's really easy to catch up because these books are so bingeable. I'm not going to tell you what the series is about because I've talked about it like probably at least 20 times on my channel. I haven't made a dedicated video for it because why add my voice to the chorus of like hundreds of people that are talking about this book online, thousands probably. But yes, so much fun. Dungeon Crawler Carl, always a good time. Next, I read Dogs of War by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Every time I pick up an Adrian Tchaikovsky, I know I'm going to get something that feels very unique. He always brings such interesting ideas to the table. I've now read, I think, 3 of his books, and he has like so many, and I definitely want to read more of them. I will say I never find his books, at least not yet, to be like perfectly executed, but I will say that he always has some really fascinating ideas and explores them in very interesting ways. So Dogs of War is no exception. You follow a dog, a couple other characters too, but a dog basically that is genetically mutated to be this creature of war. It's really about his purpose and about the way that corporations and the government use people, and a lot of other things. So I enjoyed this book. Sort of. No, I did enjoy it. So definitely check it out. But what an interesting idea, and Adrian Tchaikovsky really pulls it off. Next up, we're talking The Running Man by Richard Bachman, aka Stephen King. This was fine. I thought I was going to love this book, and in the end, I thought it was fine. In this, we have a man who is down on his luck, trying to provide for his family, who is struggling, and he basically ends up on this game show where people are trying to hunt him down, and the longer he can stay alive, the more money he can make for his family, and it's all televised and all that jazz. It definitely has a lot to say. Nothing like I think that was particularly well developed. Like, it's a pretty typical dystopian book with its usual tropes and commentary and things like that, but it didn't quite delve deeply enough into those things to be exceptional. Additionally, I found the book to be really slow, which is weird. Like, stuff happened, but it wasn't compelling necessarily, and I thought it would be compelling, like, given the plot. The ending was wild, though. I will say that. The ending was unforgettable, but there you have it. Not my favorite by any means, but it was a book. It was a book. Next, let's talk This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. This is a really short sci-fi novella, and it's gorgeously written, full of so much longing, and I really appreciated the longing. I love a good book that has just like so much longing and romantic tension. That gets me. Like, who cares about spice? Give me the tension, give me the longing, and I'm there for that. And this book had that. It is a love story told across time from two like special agents on different sides of this time war. Really fascinating ideas. I will say the plot was secondary, and the story itself was kind of hard to lock onto until like the final third. But there were some really good emotional moments. There were some really interesting directions the story went, and I liked it. Again, I didn't love it, but I liked it. Next up is an unexpected one for me, and that was First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. It was such a packed month. I had to read so many books, and I just wanted like a romantic comedy kind of book. And First Time Caller scratched the itch, my friends. It scratched the itch. And can I just say how refreshing it is to read a romance book where the characters are mature, they communicate clearly about their desires, expectations, and what they're trying to say. And rather than assuming the worst, they wait, are patient, and make sure they understand situations fully. Like, what a novel idea, reading a book about adults and relationships that act like adults. I adored that. And I thought this was really fun. I thought the characters were really likable. And it was exactly what I wanted. So First Time Caller definitely gets my stamp of approval. I don't read a ton of romance books or like contemporary romance books, but this one worked for me. So take that as you will. Next up was another reread that was of Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I gave this a 5-star when I first read it. Upon reread, it's like a 4.25, 4.5. Really good still, but not quite as impactful upon a reread. But it's fun. It's very much full of anti-heroes, a lot of characters that are morally gray. You've got two college students who believe they have figured out a way to gain extraordinary abilities by causing near-death experiences. That's the past timeline. Fast forward 10 years, one of them has been in prison basically that entire time, and they've just gotten out and they're out for revenge on the other. Really fun idea. Really enjoyed it. Still good on a reread. That being said, we'll talk about the sequel here in just a minute. Actually, we'll go ahead and talk about it now, even though I read it like 5 books later. Vengeful was book 2, and it tried to kind of expand on some things from book 1, and ultimately I didn't feel that it was a justifiable sequel. Like, when you have a book that originally pitches as a standalone, which Vicious was, then years later you come back and do a sequel, it has to make a difference and be a story worth telling. And for me, it felt like it was a much weaker sequel, unfortunately. I thought the plot was very meandering, and it was not nearly as solid and like concise as the first book. It wasn't like super long. The audiobook I think was like 12 to 13 hours, but it took me a while to get through this, and it felt so much longer than the first book. So unfortunately, not the best. I will read book 3, Victorious, when it comes out. The author, V.E. Schwab, has finished the first draft of that. She posted it on her Instagram, so it's in the works, maybe next year. I'll read it just to know, but I hesitantly recommend continuing. You could read Vicious and be just fine, so take that as you will. But other books. Next up, we've got Shark Heart by Emily Habak, which is one of my favorite books of the month. This book was so good. It is a literary love story. It's not a romance, though. It's like very much a lit fic with a speculative twist. So basically, the main character and her husband, they've just got married when her husband gets diagnosed with this condition where he's slowly turning into a shark. In this world, people, like, that's a thing. Like, people will get this mutation where they, at some point in their lives, will slowly mutate into an animal. It's not always a shark. Sometimes it's a bird. Sometimes it's something else, etc., etc. But her husband starts slowly but surely turning into a shark, which is such a weird concept for a book, and I love it. I thought it was such a fun and weird idea, and it really isn't so much concerned about the transformation process, although it digs into it enough to be like, well done. But it's really about the emotional journey of slowly losing someone. And having to come to terms with them moving on to something, whether it's death or whatever, in this case being turned into a shark. It's about that slow process of loss. And it's also about a lot of other things as well. This story is a lot more than it first seems. It's that, but it's also about the character's mother and her upbringing. It's about a lot of different stuff. And it's a book that I adored after I read it. And I think it's only going to grow in my fondness as time goes on. So really check this out. Very wonderful, very moving. I highly recommend Shark Heart. Next up is House of Shadows by Darcy Coates. I read this book because Darcy Coates has 35 or something like that horror novels, and I see them around, but I had never read one of her books. So for the readathon I was doing, I just found one that fit a prompt, and I was like, sure, let's give this a go. And to be honest, this book is so forgettable. Like the title, House of Shadows, okay, that tells you basically nothing. The cover, very generic, and the plot, extremely generic. There's nothing about this book that really did anything refreshing, and that kind of makes me wonder, if this author is putting out so many books, because Darcy Coates isn't a really long established author. I'm guessing the last 10-15 years of publishing. If you're putting out this many books, are your books standing out? That's what I want to know. And this book, unfortunately, did not sell me on this author. If you've read more books by Darcy Coates, please let me know if there are any really good ones that I need to check out, because this one, I was just that was fine. So that's kind of how I feel about it. It's so cookie cutter. I can't tell you. It's about a woman who gets into this marriage kind of unexpectedly, moves into this estate, and there's a lot of mysteries going on with why she's there, and her husband is acting kind of weird. The people on the estate, her new family, are being really strange too, and you find out more about the house and all that jazz and its past. But again, you've probably read this story. So there you have it. Next up was my subscriber pick for the month, which was Devil in a Blue Dress by Walter Mosley. I really enjoyed this book. We have a character that is really compelling in Easy Rollins. I thought he was a really fun character, and it's so funny because I read this book this month, and I think last month and the month before that I read a book called Johnny Careless, which is about a detective and stuff. And my big complaint for that was that the mystery wasn't particularly compelling, and the main character wasn't particularly compelling. And with this one, while the mystery wasn't necessarily a huge, big, impactful story or one that really stood out, Easy Rollins is a very memorable character. So it did that. It checked the box of having a character that pulled me through the story. This is, of course, the first book in a very long series that I do plan on continuing at some point. I think it's a really good and very unique feeling kind of private eye story in its genre, and I highly recommend it. It is kind of a classic of the genre at this point. So if you like pulpy, private eye kind of stories, definitely check out Devil in a Blue Dress. Thank you so much to the person that recommended it to me. I had a really good time with it. Next up, First Rider's Call by Kristen Britton. This is the second book in the Green Rider series, and I really enjoyed this book. Not quite as much as book one. This is really interesting because most fantasy series will have the first book and it just bombards you with world building and all this different information, and then you have to slowly start to care about the characters and just kind of get your bearings in the world. I feel like the series does something different where book one is very much a character story, a plot story, and like just gets you invested, and then book two is where the world building kind of comes into play. And I actually really like that because you as the reader don't have to worry about trying to remember so much different stuff. You just kind of get thrown into the story and have a good time with it, and then you care enough that the world building comes in and you want to learn about those things. So while this book wasn't as strong, I had no problem journeying through it and enjoying my time with it because I cared about Kerrigan, the main character, and all of the other characters. Overall, I enjoyed some of the mystery behind this story. Again, like, I don't think the plot was quite as compelling as this one, but I can tell you now, I've already read book 3 and it's amazing. So the series is a lot of fun. I'm having such a good time with the Green Rider series. If you want to join us for a read along of that in the Book Strummer Discord, you can again check out the link below. It's a good time. Really like great blend of classic and modern fantasy in a very compelling way. So big hit for me. Next up is a new release called Deep Cuts by Holly Brickley. And this book is what I can best describe as the novel Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. But instead of it being about video games, it's about music. You have these two people who are partners in their love of music. One of them is an actual musician. The other one just has like a deep appreciation and understanding of music and is kind of like the muse to the artist or the musician. And they have this very toxic relationship, this very much will they, won't they kind of situation through a number of years surrounding their art. The difference between this and Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, though, is that the characters are much less likable. Did not like either of the main characters whatsoever. I did enjoy the music and how it was so much the beating heart of this story, and most of it is set like in the 90s and the early 2000s, and I loved that as well. Definitely a great vibe, definitely very immersive, but I found the characters just to be exhausting and frustrating, and their relationship was toxic, and I was like, you guys both need therapy and you need to leave each other the heck alone. Do they? You know. All right, moving on. Next, we have another brand new release that just came out like last week. That is Bat Eater and Other Names for Corzang by Kylie Lee Baker. And I was blown away by this book. This is a horror book with something to say, and I really enjoyed it. So in this book, we have a setting that I wasn't sold on because just books in this setting don't always work for me. This book is set around COVID-19. So at the very start of the book, it's like 2020, the very beginning, something terrible happens, and the main character now kind of has to grapple with the thing that happened. It's years later, not years later, maybe a year and a half later. So like still COVID era, like 2021, maybe 2022, I think. And she's reeling from that. She's still coping with everything going on with COVID-19. But in addition to that, she is Asian, and is having to deal with a lot of the Asian hate surrounding this because it was like the China virus or whatever. And this book was jarring. So she is a crime scene cleanup person. So basically when there's a death, whether it be intentional or otherwise, she's one of the people that comes in, cleans up everything, the blood and et cetera, et cetera. But as she's doing that, she starts to notice a trend and a possible serial killer in this situation. There's also some supernatural elements, but what's really important about the story is the perspective it gives on Chinese people and Asian people during COVID-19 in America in particular, and the hate that they received, the unjust experiences that they had to endure, and just the hatefulness of some people. It was really eye-opening, really emotional, really powerful, really jarring, and again, just a very important story with a very important perspective. So I really enjoyed it. Not only was there so much like that I received from this story in regard to what it was trying to tell me, but it was also just really compelling. A great mystery, really intense at moments, some pretty intense moments. Not like I was scared, but like some stuff that was pretty gnarly. And so I highly recommend this book if you're a horror fan, and even if you're not, give this book a go because it is definitely worth your time. Next up, oh God, is I'll Take You There by Wally Lamb. Wally Lamb, thank God that he wrote The River is Waiting, because this was his most recent book before his new one that is coming out in June. And if this had been the first Wally Lamb book that I read, I don't know if I would have picked up another one, because I really did not like this book. And most people don't. It has a really low average on Goodreads. But he finally struck out for me on a book. Because before it was like banger, banger, banger. So many 5-star books from this guy. And he's still one of my favorite authors. I'm going to forgive this, but it was rough. So this is a pretty short novel in which we have a middle-aged, slightly past middle-aged man just living, and he is the host of a film club in his town, and he starts getting visited by the ghosts of these actresses and these women, and it's a book that is so bogged down by already dated cultural references. Even though this book came out less than 10 years ago, or maybe around 10 years ago, it's just like every other sentence is like some pop culture reference that is outdated at this point. And it's trying so hard to be on top of that it's just totally lost the point. And in addition to that, it is the most heavy-handed form of feminism. Like, I am all about empowering women, but this book is just like really trying hard to get its message across, and it is just so blatantly like beating you over the head with it. It's just very heavy-handed, and it just was not a good book. So Wally Lamb, you've got some really good stories in you. I know this much is true. The Hour I First Believed, The River is Waiting. You write some incredible books, but this one was not it. It was not it, unfortunately. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Next up, we have Urchin of the Writing Stars, book 1 of the Miss Mantle series, Miss Mantle Chronicles by M.I. McAllister. This is a book that I read when I was a kid, and I loved it then, and I still really like it now. It is a great children's book. Like, it's a great introduction to fantasy, some great tropes, some great plot points, but all with some squirrels and other animals being the main character. So it's like Redwall, which I also adore, obviously. But if you want something that's not quite as like maybe dense as Redwall, not that Redwall is like particularly dense, but it's a little bit more modernly told, but very much inspired by like Shakespeare and things like that at the same time. Check out, or have your kids check out, the Miss Mantle Chronicles. It was a really good read. I enjoyed my reread of it quite a lot. Next up, we come to my favorite book of the month, and that is Gothic by Philip Fracassi. What a banger of a story. Philip Fracassi is 3 for 3 for me so far. I've now read Boys in the Valley, The Third Rule of Time Travel, and Gothic, and this is probably my favorite one from him. In this, we have an author who is kind of struggling. He has written a lot of books in the past, has been successful before, but now he's kind of fallen off, and his wife gets him this really expensive desk for his birthday. And there's something off about the desk. It's a haunted desk, guys, and whew, this book was like, it felt like The Shining, and that you have this author who kind of gets put into this unique situation and slowly descends into madness. And it was just so compelling. It was so good. A really fantastically told horror story. A lot of fun, really gnarly at times, but a blast. An absolute blast. If you love horror, check out Philip Fracassi, guys. He is killing it right now. Next up, we have Dandelion Audit by Andrew Givler, which is the second book in the Debt Collection series, book 1 being Soul Fraud. And this is so much fun. Like, that is always the word that I'm going to use describing this series. It is just a good time. It is fun. It is an urban fantasy series about a guy who accidentally gets his soul stolen by a demon and kind of everything that happens after. But it's a really fun urban fantasy series in that, like, you never really know where the story is going to go. It's not like your typical mystery urban series or urban fantasy series. And it was really interesting, the directions the story went. I did not expect the things that happen in this book, and I am very excited to jump into book 3, which I'll be doing very, very soon. So highly recommend this self-published urban fantasy series. Andrew Givler is a really great writer, and his books are just an absolute blast. Check them out. Okay, next up, we have a book that I am kind of disappointed in, not because it was bad, but because it wasn't a 5-star. And it's a bummer because of it. Like, I really thought it was going to be. I've given this author so many 5 stars before, and this one wasn't quite a 5. And the book I'm talking about is King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby. yeah, what can I say about this? So it was pitched as like Godfather inspired crime fiction novel, and it is, but like not in the way you expect, like not like Godfather Part 1, more like Godfather Part 2. And additionally, this book just felt pretty predictable, unfortunately. S.A. Cosby kind of leaves my jaw on the floor a lot with his books. I have loved all of his books before now. I've rated most of them 5 stars. All the Sinners Bleed, Blacktop Wasteland, Razorblade Tears. Those were just incredible books. And My Darkest Prayer was good too. But this one, I just expected more out of it. The plot was not really particularly surprising. And there were some side characters that just frustrated me, and I was like, how stupid can you be? Like, you know, there's stupid, and then there's like a little too stupid, you know? At least for the plot. It felt like it was like stupid to serve the plot, and sometimes stupid to serve the plot is just a bit too stupid for me. So yeah, also a very rushed ending for me. So again, like I feel like I'm digging into the negatives here. It was still a really well-written book, very compelling and engaging, some really great characters in the midst of the stupid characters. But just for S.A. Cosby, like I expected just a tiny bit more. If this book was written by somebody else, I'd be like, wow, that was a really good book. I'm really interested in this author. And for me, it's like S.A. Cosby is the 5-star guy, and I wanted this to be 5 stars, but it's okay. It was a 4, a happy 4, a happy 4. Okay, last 2 books. We're at 21 and 22. I read Pronto by Elmore Leonard, and I thought it was pretty good. So Elmore Leonard is kind of the dialogue king. He really like gets the way people talk to each other, and I will say that that was well done. The rest of it was fine. I didn't think that the characters were all that compelling. I didn't think that the plot was all that compelling. At the end of it, I was just kind of like, all right, that was a story. But I appreciate what Elmore Leonard does, and I can definitely see myself picking up more of his books. I will pick up more of his books in the near future. But for this one in particular, Pronto, it was just fine, like a 3.5 for me. And finally, I read a book called Erasing History by Jason Stanley. And there's a longer name for it as well, but I forget what the subtitle is. But this is a book about fascism and about the kind of the history of it and how it has happened in the past and how we need to be aware of some of the things that are happening in the present that look a lot like it. Yeah, a scary book. This was perhaps the scariest book I read all year. Not all year, well, maybe all year, but all month for sure. So yeah, definitely check this book out. I think everyone should read it because it is eye-opening in the worst and best, most important way possible. All right, guys, that's it though. Those are the 22 books that I read in the month of April. It was a really, really solid reading month. I'm really proud of my team. Team Ian, we did our best, and I'm really proud of myself for reading a lot of books. So yeah, I kind of like read my 20 books for the readathon, and then I just like didn't read anything for a week, and then I squeezed in those last 2 books at the end, and now I'm back on track. But yeah, kind of an intense reading month. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if any of these books really appeal to you. A lot of really good ones thrown in there, some mid ones and some disappointing ones, but definitely some good ones as well. And thanks so much for sticking around to the end of the video. Let me know what your favorite book of the month was so I can check it out. I appreciate you. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!